Hey, Chris.
Hey there. It's like 60 degrees here today.
It is, hold on,
28 degrees, I bet.
it's 78.
Hey, nailed it.
The low tonight is 64. Tomorrow, the coolest day we have this week is going to be Saturday at 73. The rest, and actually next week it almost looks not very comfortably hot. So yeah, we got a few more weeks to sort that mess out with Mother Nature though, so that's okay.
I put off my trip to South Carolina. It's supposed to be 65 to 75 now when I'll be down there. So I'm happy on that.
Yeah. I have a kid in
Supposed to go-
Tennessee.
Yeah, I was supposed to go first week of February and it was 29 and 30 degrees for the night temperatures.
No, thanks. I have a kid in Nashville. She drove down on Monday. She drove down Monday, and she said it was beautiful yesterday, but raining today. All right, here's Anna. Let me get her in, and then we'll get started. All right, so we have a quorum, so I'm going to call this meeting together. Call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. This is the February 17th meeting of the Parks Commission. In accordance with the requirements of open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and will eventually be broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. Just in case for some reason we are live on Facebook or any other platform right now, if any member of the public would like to join us this evening via Zoom, the address is https://us02web.zoom.us/j/792-737-0353, or you can call in at 888-475-4499 using the meeting ID 792-737-0353. All right, let me do a quick roll call since we are doing this remotely this evening. Dave?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Chris?
Here.
And Anna?
Here.
Awesome. All right, so the first thing on our agenda this evening is, do we have any public or board comments? Sweet, that one's easy.
Jared has a hand up.
Yep, I see it now. Get Jared, you can unmute.
Hear
Hey,
me?
Jared. Yep.
All right.
Hey, Jared.
So I know tonight you're
Jared,
discussing.
tell me who you are and where you live.
Sure. Jared Bowser, 512 West Townsend Road. I've also worked in the past as a lifeguard for the town beach. So because that's going to be the discussion, I just had a couple points I wanted to make. Because obviously, right, when it was time to actually discuss the beach, like in October, I forgot all these things I wanted to say. So now I'll say it now because better late than never. So I know in the past, it has been mentioned that a cash option needs to be added to the beach. I'm not going to go into much detail because I know that's already on your radar. So I just hope that's something discussed.
It is. We legally have to accept cash, Jared.
Okay.
So that will be happening this year.
And then any updates you may or may not have on the weed issue at the lake, because I know that's also another complicated, well, that one's a complicated issue.
So we have no update on weeds for you. So I don't know if everybody on the commission is aware of this yet, but Rob Oliva has submitted his resignation, and he's only with us for a few more weeks. So my gut tells me that this is going to be something that we're going to have to take up with our new DPW director, but it's still on our radar, Jared, the weeds there, as well as some invasives over at Marshall Pond. So I'm not going to let it drop off. I feel like if we don't figure something out, the whole water area is going to be overtaken with.
Well, that's why I kind of mentioned it in the past, because, it's always, trickled in, but it's starting to get to the point where it's a little bit more noticeable. Whereas, before it was only noticeable if you actually went out deep. Now it's in the shallow end, getting very weedy. So,
yeah.
Okay. The other two things I wanted to mention, one that was the life jacket policy on the rules. I know 2 years ago, there was an incident where I think it was a 5 or 6-year-old was wearing a life jacket and started to swim out to the buoys. And for those who don't know, that's like at least 30 feet deep out there, if not more. Obviously, good thing was, because they're doing the doggy paddle, they didn't get far. So it was very easy to get them to come back in. But it definitely was a concern that we mentioned with the previous recreation director. And so for the 2021 year, we asked, how the best way to approach that. And, we kind of came with the consensus of children who are wearing a life jacket have to be where they're standing, be able to stand in the water or be within arm's reach of an adult. So that doesn't happen. So I wasn't sure if that, because I know with the previous recreation director going on maternity leave, if anything ever happened in terms of fixing the rule on that, to at least mention that, or if there's
So, yep, so I'm gonna connect you with Rob Thompson, who's our current recreation director. He's actually on this, but I will make sure you have his email and to talk to him about it. The Parks Commission has never, as far as I know, has never approved a policy. So any policy or procedure that was in place was a day-to-day activity situation that was put in place by our previous recreation director and our beach coordinator. But there's actually a Massachusetts law that's actually, I was trying to look it up just now and I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember what it's called, but there is something that there is some mass state guidance on it, but we'll get that figured out.
Yeah,
And
it's more just, again, making, not so much that they can't wear it, but just making sure on the lifeguards end, there's not, like, we're not just coming up with rules, or if we're breaking laws, making sure that's clear on how to approach it, because
Right.
as is, the rules doesn't really address that. And I also don't think just
Okay.
because there were a couple situations that the swimming out to the buoys for those who can swim out there should be restricted.
okay, we'll certainly work on that. And I'll connect you with Rob and we'll make sure that we get that on the radar for this coming beach season.
Okay. And then 3 more things and then I'll stop. So the first one is in regards to the daily passes. So I know how it was formatted last year. It made sense, but once we started saying it to people, there was a lot of confusion. And I know part of it will be relieved with the cash option, but there was a problem where we had a couple like grandparents who have the season senior pass who decide to bring their grandkid to the beach. And it ended up being a whole like 30-minute thing because we couldn't add them to to their account on my rec because they didn't live in town. So, and not having that go-to person to figure that out, it ended up being calling the parents who were, doing something else to set up the account. So there was just a lot of confusion. I don't know if it's necessarily the rate itself, but just how all that was situated just made something that could be done in 2 minutes very tedious.
Yeah, okay. We'll work on that.
And then the other thing, I know part of this has been with COVID, because COVID, dictates all with the break at 2:30. I understand some of the reasons behind that break, but just because, the beach is used throughout, from 10
I'm
to
not
7.
anticipating that this year, Jared.
But more, I was just that was an ideal time zone that a lot of people were not too happy with. And
Okay.
I never, we always said, you could talk to the recreation director, the Parks Commission if you don't like it. And we have no idea, if that ever went anywhere.
It probably didn't, because I don't think it had come up again over the summer once our recreation director left. So we'll work with Rob to make sure that that things flow smoother in both with passes and with the way the schedule looks. But I'm not anticipating that same schedule for next summer, especially with a lot of COVID policy procedure stuff just being dropped.
Okay.
So,
And then the last thing on a positive note, again, with COVID not being able to do the boat race, I know that was definitely something that people asked, hey, are we doing it? And I know, for 2020, it was a no because of COVID, and then 2021, combination of COVID and recreation
You have it
director. So
Have it
I
back.
hope that's something that that's on. I don't know how familiar Rob Thompson is on that event.
Yep,
but
I'll
I
fill
hope-
him in on it. I can fill him in on it, but
but I
yes,
hope
absolutely.
that's something that I know that's something that a lot of people like. So I hope that's something either discussed in this meeting or a different one, or if that's something Rob does on his own, however that works out.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much, Jared. Great.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything before we move on? All right, great. All right, so our next item is approval of minutes. We have 2 minutes in our, in the folder. One of them is, and these are all drafts. One of them is January, I think it's the 6th. I think I kept putting it in as January 4th, but I believe it was January 6th. And then the other one was January 20th. When we talked about this the last time, I think it was Dave or Anna, somebody had a concern over the early January, the first January minutes. Do you have changes that you want made to those minutes?
And honestly, I haven't had a chance. I totally forgot about going back to that. I did have some issues with interpretation of the wording of a number of sentences, but I don't remember what they were right now without going back through it.
That's fine. Do you want us to hold those?
I'd like to, if we could,
Okay.
please.
Just side note on all this, because this is the way life is gonna go. Our minutes taker has also resigned her position. So we are now back to minutes on our own, I guess. I don't know how we're gonna handle it, but yeah. So so Dave, let's hold the January 4th so you can go back through it. Did anybody have time to go through the January 20th minutes?
I did not.
Okay, so why don't we hold it all?
Okay,
I'm fine holding it.
make a point for our March meeting to
Yep.
have digested both of them thoroughly.
All right, now we're up to the DPW Town Manager Recreation Director updates. I am going to take this opportunity again, just to make sure everybody on the board is aware that our DPW Director is leaving the town of Lunenburg, and his last day with us is going to be March 11th. So I don't know what the process is or how fast they're going to be able to find somebody. Yeah, that's the deal there. So Rob, I guess that will make things a little easier. Maybe we won't hire somebody named Rob. I never, I don't know. I always screwed up everything, sending emails to 2 Robs. So, all right, Rob, what do you have for updates for us?
Yeah. There's no audio, Rob. Check and see if your microphone's turned all the way down. Go into audio on Zoom.
We can skip you, Rob, and we can circle back to you. All right, let's circle back to him because I know that we have Greg in here waiting. All right, so our next agenda item is septic and sewer at Marshall Park. Last month, I had gotten an email from Greg asking for me to sign a document. It's in the folder. It's in the meeting folder. I have not signed it because I wanted to make sure I had the Parks Commission blessing on this. And this is giving Greg, it's signing off for him to go in front of Conservation Commission to finish the permitting process. Do I have that correct, Greg? So there's no harm in continuing with the process the way it is right now. I don't know what everybody's final decision is going to be on whether or not they think we should continue moving forward with sewer, or continue moving forward doing septic, or whether we should really be considering sewer. but from what I have gathered after talking to Rob Oliva, as well as Greg this week, there's no harm in us continuing the permitting process for a septic tank. It's not the installation, it's just the permitting process. Does that make sense to everybody? Does anybody have any questions? Because Greg is standing right here or sitting right here.
Yeah,
Do you need a
just have
motion to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Greg, have you had any requests for any modification or relocation of the tank or anything, either from our architects, from WOLA or anybody else, or is it still pretty much the design that you submitted that's going to go to Conscom?
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I haven't had anything formal from anybody yet. I did have a call with WOLA. Just out of courtesy, I had told them at the last Parks meeting that if they were interested, I'd be happy to give them a little local civil advice, just as the local civil engineer in town, but also a guy that lives across the street from the park. So I did have a call with them and was able to give them, a little bit more in depth on the septic, among other things. So and just so everybody on the call is clear, I am showing a location of the bathhouse just because I can't put a septic plan in front of the Board of Health that just is the leaching field. I have to show the building that it's going to serve and the septic tanks and things. But like I've been saying all along, that's not set in stone. The only thing that can't change location is the actual leaching field on the plan. We can relocate the building and the septic tank and the pump chamber basically anywhere in the park, and we can pump it to the leaching field. So, and I made that clear to WOLA, and they seem to be, they understood that. I mean, they're pretty knowledgeable, of course. So, so if the master plan that the commission chooses shows the bathhouse in a different location, we'll be able to modify this and still build it under the permit that we're going to be getting from the Board of Health. The reason I showed it in the place that I did is that it represents sort of a worst case scenario from a Conservation Commission standpoint. It's sort of the closest to the wetland that I figured it would ever be. And so I think that it made sense to go forward with that in that location. If we revise it, I think it will only get better from a conservation standpoint. So I don't think, so getting a permit now is not a risk because, a modification would almost certainly be more favorable to the Conservation Commission if we could do that as sort of a minor amendment. So, so that's where we're at.
Thank you. Go
Greg,
ahead.
one other quick question, and this is a hypothetical. If we moved the building, I believe it's over 100 feet from the pump chamber, or I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, that changes the requirement for the force line from the building to the septic system with I believe a clean out, and I don't know what else. But is that something that just gets caught up in the as-built, or would it have to go back as a modification?
I guess I'd say it depends. Honestly, I can't remember the Board of Health regulations in Lunenburg if there's a regulation prohibiting a certain distance away from the leaching field.
I was warned already that there is.
So if there is, then we'd have to go back to the board. This is considered an upgrade or a repair system. So I don't anticipate any issue getting relief on that regulation. So, if that were the case, we would revise the plan, send it back to the Board of Health. We may need a local variance to do that, but that's not a huge deal in the case of a repair septic system. Right. If it was a new construction, it would be a different animal, but they're considering this a repair, so I don't anticipate that being a problem.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And by the way, I did file this with the Board of Health already. So I didn't need your signature on this. This is a little bit of an odd thing where I'm kind of working for the Board of Health, but I'm working on land that you folks own and need to sign and have sort of signatory authority on. So the notice of intent requires the owner to sign on that, right? So that's why the notice of intent is before you, but the Board of Health application has actually already been made. the top, to the Board of Health. So,
This
I
is
just
just
wanted to update.
conservation.
yeah, it's just conservation. So,
All right, so I'm looking for a motion giving me permission to sign this document on behalf of the Parks Commission to return to Greg Roy from Dillis and Roy for submission.
I will make a motion to allow you to sign this form to return to the Parks, or to the Conservation Commission.
Second,
Any further conversation? Since we are remote, this has to be a roll call vote. Chris?
Aye.
Dave?
I,
Anna?
I,
And it's an aye from myself. I do want to just put a little bit of some stuff out there that I would like you guys to think about over the course of the next coming couple of months regarding septic and sewer. So this, we're in a unique situation because we have, the Board of Health has a sum of money that they're willing to put forward to repair the septic system that we have. We've also been put into the sewer district, so we could connect to sewer if we so desired. And I say that we're in this unique situation because the septic that's going to be, or is designed for a certain flow for this, a certain number of bathrooms. If we wanted to put in a kitchen, if a snack shack that's an actual like, has all the requirements, we most likely would not be able to connect into this septic. We would have to most likely do sewer. Could we do both in that property? Absolutely. Does it make sense to? I don't know. What's the expense in the long run to have septic? I'm not sure, versus sewer, obviously, or I shouldn't say obviously, sewer, I would think would be a little bit cheaper. But we haven't decided absolutely on either direction on septic or sewer. So, as we move forward, if you guys could, make sure you're throwing your questions out there so that we can get you answers, so that when the time comes, we're making the best decision for Marshall Park. So does anybody have any questions on that?
I'm going to ask some questions of the Board of Health between now and the next meeting, because I don't think it's a big, major issue to put a small snack shack, anything that we would put at Marshall Park. I don't think there's a huge issue, especially with the capacity of the field that we're building. Greg may have a comment on that, but I don't think it's anything we need to debate tonight.
Fortunately for Greg, I've already told him that this is the one part of civil engineering I don't understand, and have no knowledge of. So I will be.
it's the only one, huh? That's the only one part of it, huh?
For right now, let's not highlight too many.
Have you seen LinkedIn or ZipRecruiter? I have a job posting out there for an entry-level civil engineer, so. feel
But I'm
free.
not entry level. I've been around the bush.
I'll take experience. I'll take experience. Salary is commensurate with experience. So,
Awesome, sweet.
yeah.
Sweet. All right, so I am assuming you don't have any answer right off the top of your head for Dave on his question.
No, I mean, Dave may be correct. I think that's just going to be a discussion that you have to have with the Board of Health. We had this discussion initially with the Board of Health, because if you recall, this is one of those situations where it happens from time to time where we have a failed septic and there's no Board of Health records that tells us what we should use for a design flow. So we went to the Board of Health meeting and we just sort of said, listen, we think this is what is reasonable. And we put forth a flow, which is what we have on the plan, which is based on a number of park occupants. But, once you have a flow established, which in this case is 1,000 gallons a day, yeah, you can allocate that flow however you want. So if you have a snack shack on the, you'll be able to, there'll be some flexibility there. It's just going to be a matter of working with the Board of Health. So, yeah.
All right. And I say, I don't want anybody to come off thinking that I'm trying to say that one is better than another. A sewer system going in there isn't going to be the easiest system either. We are on ledge over there. It's not as simple as just going in with some shovels and digging a trench. So
Karen, that's the other thing too. I'll try to get some, they won't be official numbers, but I will try, you and I had talked one time, and I'll try to get some numbers as to a good ballpark number we could be expecting for a line in from Mass Ave. Because there's a number of issues there that, will add to the cost.
Yeah. All right, thank you on that. Rob, did you get any volume back?
I hope so. Can anybody hear me?
We
Yep.
can, we can.
Clear.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, via phone.
It's okay.
So for updates, I finally got a clear answer on the use of TCP. I can use, the recreation can utilize it as much as we want, Monday through Friday at no cost, all the way up until 9 o'clock. I was able to get clarification on that due to, I kept on running into issues of cost, but cost will be only for weekends and anything after that time. As of right now, I was able to get the passes working. So whatever passes for the beach pass were issued last year or the year before, they were never entered into the system. But if anybody holding those cards still have them, we can reinitiate them back into the system. So that will work fine. We will have a point of sale system at the beach. And the problem with the leaking of the roof, I guess it's a wall that needs to be replaced, but that isn't going to stop the season by no means. So
I want me to update on that, Rob, because I actually had a conversation with Rob Oliver.
yes, please.
So we had a contractor go in. He actually went in with the building inspector from Lunenburg after the wall was opened up, and they looked at it. They believe that that front wall is repairable. The entire front wall will need to be replaced. They'll have to brace it and do all their fancy work, all that fancy civil engineering work. And then that wall will be replaced. When I specifically asked Rob Oliver about using that building and how fast we were going to get this repaired, he doesn't think it should be used until, or my understanding was he didn't think it should be used until it's repaired. So he was going to put some, trying to, get a better timeline in place so it can be done in the spring before the beach is scheduled to open. So that entire front wall will be replaced. The back wall, Dave, I think you and I have both brought this up numerous times. The back wall, they didn't find any issues with. It was just that front wall.
Okay. I actually took a look from a distance coming out of Whalum the other day, and I didn't even realize it, but there's a block wall underneath that side of the building. So they may have done something a number of years ago to at least stabilize that side of the building.
And they looked at the foundation as well, and there was no issues with the foundation. So it looks like it's just going to be that front wall. And when I asked about funding on that, he didn't have a straight answer. He suggested that we have a conversation with town manager, which I will at some point. Not that we have strict control over, or not that we have any control over anybody's budget, because we don't, but we do have a revolving account. The question then became, does it get covered under facilities, or does it get covered because we charge for usage of, we sell passes and we charge for usage? Should parks be paying for part of it as well? And if so, where does it come from? Does it come from the line item under DPW, or does it come from the parks revolving fund? So that's still to be determined. So that's what I got on that for you.
Yeah, other than that, I'm getting W-9s in, establishing contracts. Haven't been able to get a full concrete list of vendors, solid with their W into the contracts, but I'm working on that, and everything's moving forward, and we are a running operation. So any questions?
Yeah, I do. I have one. There was a post on Facebook maybe a week or so ago, about a woman who was looking for gym space for an adult volleyball program.
Okay.
Can I direct her towards you? That just seems like it would be a program that, any of these adult programs, I think you know, they'd be a great thing to have underneath us.
Yes,
You know, because us adults
absolutely.
are always looking for something to do.
If anybody has like any adult programs from volleyball, badminton, foursquare, pickleball, anything that they could see, either if they have equipment to donate for any particular program, I'm willing to put on anything we can right off the bat.
Okay.
Other things require equipment and fees, if rental and all that, but I would love to get things like volleyball going immediately.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Rob? All right, excellent. We are going through the next part.
I,
Go ahead, Anna.
the hiring for
Oh,
the
yes,
town
yes.
beach. What's the status? What's the plan?
We have, we've already updated the job descriptions, and it should be posting as of March. So I think by March 22nd, those are already ready to go, and we are ready to start receiving applicants. Hopefully, right off the bat, we can start to get some of the last year's lifeguards that seem to be really willing to work with us right on board.
I'd like to set it as a goal of the commission to be making a recommendation for hiring of these positions. I don't remember how long they stayed open last year. And you know, COVID obviously screwed up the past 2 years, but it'd be nice if we could get something over to the Board of Selectmen to ratify, or whatever they call it, you know, the first couple of weeks of May, so that these people know that they're hired and they actually have a job. So Jared Bowser, are you still on? Can you come on for a second? I do have a question for you.
He's got a hand up
Sure.
too. so-
Yep. Do you have a question, Jared?
No, I was actually gonna say, I remember, and this might be your actual question. I remember the beach season ending just before school started because none of us could find time to work at the beach. So somewhere towards, you know, probably August 27th, 28th, something.
Season to end. Jared, do you remember, have you followed any of the minimum wage stuff that we're paying our lifeguards?
Maybe.
Okay,
I followed a little bit, but I don't know.
I was sort of hoping you had. So Rob Thompson, can you do me a favor in the next couple of weeks? Can you double check where our lifeguards are falling? Because Anna, you were at this meeting with me a couple of years ago at an annual town meeting. The salary stuff came up on the personnel committee side, and I made a motion on the floor because what they were recommending wasn't even bringing our lifeguards to minimum wage. And at the time, Anna, I don't know if you remember this, but at the time I had made a comment like, this will help, but it wasn't gonna take us much further than like 2 years before I think they were back under state minimum wage. So municipalities don't have to pay minimum wage, state minimum wage, they have to pay federal minimum wage. But our lifeguards, I mean, they're life-saving people, so they should be making at a minimum wage. Can we just verify that so that if we have to
Absolutely.
do something with the personnel committee, we get that done?
Absolutely. I'll have that information for you.
If I could just say something real quick, I don't know, my connection broke up, but I did see on the town website, the job posting is already on the town website. I don't, from what I could tell, you said something about it being posted later, but it's already posted, or I don't know.
No, well, maybe it's posted from this point until the job is filled, but my deadline was to reach before March 22nd. If it's been already updated and pushed through the system, so it could very well be posted, and that's the one you're saying.
Again, my connection broke up, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know if this helps on your question with the wage. I do remember it saying it was like between 14, I think it was 14.25 and 17 something again, I don't know if that answers your question on the wage.
Yeah,
type.
we'll figure it out. I just want to make sure you guys didn't fall below minimum wage, because at one point, and don't quote me on all these numbers, but at one point, minimum wage was like $12.50 or $12.75, and we were still paying our lifeguards at like $8.25 an hour.
Yeah, that was my
Wow.
first year.
Yeah,
that it
and
was.
you and I had this conversation, and and that's the year that I, that I went in front of the town to get that increased. I just want to make sure we didn't fall under again. So we'll have Rob Thompson investigate that for us. All right, awesome.
Will
We
do.
do have Beach 2022. Hopefully I put the right year down on our
Yep.
on our agenda, so we can circle back to some of this stuff in a little bit. I do want to
Karen,
get, yeah.
Can I ask Rob one more question? Rob, we had a conversation a week or two ago about, hitting the ground running for this beach season. Have you run into any glitches that are holding you back at all with scheduling? Well, until you have the beach director conversation, I'm sure scheduling of the lessons and stuff won't be finalized until then. But we talked about the issues that happened last year that delayed decisions really hurt that whole process.
Absolutely. We have everything in order to get the beach tested. I spoke with the Board of Health, so none of that should be an issue. We'll have all those beforehand. I think that's a minimum of 5 days they need before opening, but they said they will have that. Well, they should have that before our opening dates. What we have to determine is the opening dates. So if we have concrete dates, I can certainly begin to formalize a timeline between training and opening.
So did you just say that you filled out the seasonal permit for, or you need dates?
No, I have not filled out anything for the seasonal permit. I just wanted to know the process. So I reached out to the Board of Health, and they described in vague detail how it's going to open up, and that information will be available beforehand.
I think I've said this before to you. We need to make sure that seasonal form gets sent in on time, because they need so many days or weeks to get it approved, and I don't want to get it in too late. On that form, the dates that should be used are the same ones that we've used in the past, and if we need as a commission to vote on it, we can. You have to go back and look at how many days that seasonal employment is allowed in Massachusetts. I don't remember what the number of days were. And then what we had done in the past was we had just chosen like a date in the middle of September, usually a Saturday. And then we counted back, and it usually brought us into May, and we used that date. And the reason we used that date was because it allowed us to, if we needed to suddenly shuffle dates, or somebody came on and wanted to open for weekends, we could do that, because if you don't have the dates approved, we can't open. So I just know like 5 years or so ago, we used to literally do it from like the day before the beach was scheduled to open through the day the beach was scheduled to close. And then it just tied our hands to extend anything. So.
Yeah, I haven't run into any problems there. That permit process was brought up to me, and we have addressed at least the issue of determining the dates. But if you say from September, we begin to count our way back, I will look into the year previously or before that schedule and determine when we can get these permits processed.
And Karen, we used to vote every year on that. Was there a reason we did? It was an annual vote.
On the seasonal stuff?
On the actual beach season. And I understand exactly what you just said, because the actual operation of the beach is somewhere within those dates.
So and I would expect it to be the same, that we'd be voting at some point before the start of the beach season. We've always voted on opening and closing dates. And that just, that made sure that everybody agreed with, when we were opening, because as soon as they open, we have to staff it, and, budgetary stuff comes into line. And hopefully some of the stuff can start changing now that, Rob is here. But previous, before COVID and before Kayla, a lot of the stuff was done via vote because it was me doing all the work, me like sending in all the paperwork. And I wasn't comfortable doing it without everybody being in the know of what I was doing and why I was doing it. So, but now I don't have to do any of that work. So a good thing.
Well, we can still vote.
Yeah, I don't think you need a vote from us on anything right now. But yeah, we will still vote. And I would like to sit and have a conversation, specifically about the beach too at some point. So.
Absolutely.
All right, Anthony and Greg, you guys, if you want to throw your hands up, join in on some of the conversation if you would like to. The next item on our agenda is the skate park. So I have an update and then I want to have a conversation. So the update, the tree situation. I had spent some time talking with Anthony over the last month or two about trees, because in order for them, when they're ready to move forward, we need to deal with the trees. From what I have been told by town manager, those trees are actually town property. So if we give the okay to have those trees taken down, we can't just give them away. So Anthony and I have had conversation about these trees. I've talked to town manager and I've talked to the assistant town manager. So we're waiting on some additional information from them. I did talk to Julie Beliveau this week and said to her, what's the process? What's the timeline? And what happens if these trees come down and we can't sell them because there's no takers on it? So I'm waiting for those answers back, because that's going to obviously have to be, when they're ready to move forward, that's going to have to be the first task that they do is to clear these trees. So I did want to make sure everybody was aware of that. I did include Anthony on an email that I sent to assistant town manager today, making sure she understood what my questions were on Tuesday. And as of 7:41, I have not heard back from her yet. The other thing that has come up that I think we need to start having these discussions on. Hold on one second. So back in the fall timeframe, I had met with town manager Adam Costa from our attorney's office for the town and all the skate park folks. And asking questions around the process and things like that. And one of the questions that has been front and center for myself, I know for Anna, and I'm sure for the other two, has been, once this project starts, how do we ensure that it gets finished so that the town isn't on the hook for covering the cost to finish it? I was told that the better question to ask is what the recourse would be if the project wasn't finished. So that led into a discussion. And during that discussion, town manager had mentioned something called bonds. There's two kinds of bonds. There's a performance bond that would ensure that the work gets completed if the contractor walks away. And then there's a payment bond that would guarantee that all the subcontractors and materials are paid for by the contractor. So why does the performance bond, why would that be important for the town? Currently, this project is basically a private project. Because of the way it would be done, they wouldn't be required to pay prevailing wage. And there's things that they don't have to do because it's not a public project. But if the contractor walks away, they run out of money, any of the other stuff that could happen, and the town steps in to complete it, we now have to do prevailing wage, which adds an additional sum of money to the project, the anticipated cost. And a performance bond would allow, it would, if they walked away, it would cover the cost of the town, whatever the town had to spend to complete the project, including prevailing wage, it would cover that. So I'm looking to have and all of both of these bonds, because it's basically an insurance policy, would cost the skate park group additional money. So I want to have this discussion so we can decide if one or both of these bonds or none of these bonds are something that we are going to expect of them, so that they know that there may or may not be an additional cost that they have to, sum of money that they have to raise.
Karen, the first question I would have is, and I'm assuming that the performance bond would not affect the limitations that we have with the process that we're trying to allow them to go through with us setting limitations on our agreeing to let them build the park. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
As in we're limited to how much how much say we have over what they do there once we give them the okay to break ground.
I don't believe it would, because I think it wouldn't have even been thrown out there if it was going to affect affect their overall process,
Yeah.
public versus private project.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't think I understood Dave's question.
So in order for this to stay on the track that it's on of being a private project, there's only so much that the Parks Commission can do. And here's I'm going to give you the example that they used the night of the day that we met with them. The town of Townsend, they had a large donor that was adding an addition onto their senior center or library, one of those buildings. And in that building was going to be a kitchen. And from what Adam Costa said, the group, was it the library, or was it library, Greg? Does that sound right?
The most recent one is the senior center.
Okay, so the senior center. So the senior center folks couldn't come forward and say, we want the kitchen here and we want X, Y, and Z there. That would be overstepping their involvement and it would become a public project. So Dave wants to make sure that by us requiring either of these bonds, that it's not us overstepping and forcing this project into the public realm.
Right, exactly.
Okay, but I would think we could set design standards and parameters.
Explain.
Sure. So for example, a design standard, I mean, if you say not to be more than 5,000 square feet or
Yeah.
8,000 square feet, that's a design standard.
We can
We can say we don't want to, 3-level drops, or I don't know, we don't want a dip of that's greater than 25 feet because, so they will have a limitation on that. Those are design standards. We want to on this location. And also with the design standard, which is the one part that I'm thinking about it, is that alongside some of these things that we might want to think is, we have this master plan being drafted, and it will be important that aesthetically, whatever the design is matches whatever else we approve. So, and there are, just as that is the, and Lunenburg has a design bylaw for commercial buildings and commercial zones, and also in the village district. There are design, like I know flat roof is one that's not necessarily allowed, or there are restrictions with it. So I don't think we can say we want to, granite countertop, but we can say, we don't want a skate park that's dirt.
Right. No. And I actually said to Adam Costa, this is what we've done so far. And one of it was, we want to be able to look at this plan before we give the okay for them to, put it in. And I said,
Right.
Is that allowed? And he said, yes, it's allowed. And, the reasoning behind that was, I don't want them to, not that they would do this, but, I wouldn't want them to be putting in a swimming pool and we're expecting a skate park. So
Right.
yes, we would not be able to say to them, we want this rail or this whatever skate, whatever. Again, this is where I also lack in civil engineering on skateboarding. You know, we can't tell them where we want something or that we specifically want something. But yes, we
Right.
can, you know, yes, there are standards that we can request. But Dave wanted to make
Okay.
sure this wasn't requiring either one of these bonds would be, he wants to make sure we're not overstepping and forcing it into a
Right.
public project.
I just want to make sure, you know, that conversation has to be had.
Yep.
Like the design center. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So what is everybody's thoughts? Are these up? Go ahead, Greg.
We'd love not to have the cost of a bond for the project, don't get me wrong, but I'd be remiss if I didn't draw a corollary here to a developer that's developing a subdivision that's going to go in, that's going to ultimately be accepted by the town. Infrastructure that's going to be built by the developer with no prevailing wages as a private project, but ultimately is going to be taken over and accepted by the town. The road and the drainage and all that stuff. And in that situation, it's similar. It's not a gift per se, but it's similar. And in that situation, the town requires a performance bond.
Yep.
And it doesn't affect the status of the project as a private project. It relates more to the ultimate disposition of the infrastructure. And if the town is going to accept the infrastructure, you know, like a road, then they want to have a performance bond to make sure that it's built according to, and by the way, in that situation, to protect people that may have bought property along it, that would be materially affected, negatively affected if the road and infrastructure wasn't completed. So it's a little bit of a gray area. You know, like I said, we'd certainly prefer not to have the expense of a performance bond, but I can understand why the town would want to protect itself in that manner. So
I equate it to actually the track and field, the turf over at the high school. That project was originally a private project. And I wasn't involved in all of it in the very beginning, so I don't know all of the details, but when their funding ran out, that project wasn't completed. And Anna, you would have probably been at, probably all would have been at the town meetings where they came in front of the town and asked for the town to fund the remainder of that project, and we did. I don't know how, I just don't see the town being as forgiving if it was to happen again, or wanting to fund a skate park if it doesn't get completed. So
the other thing to keep in mind is if you know, we don't intend to proceed with the project if we don't have the money. That's the first thing to say again. So we want to make sure that people understand that, and we intend to document that to the town to the extent we can, and still not wade into waters that would get us too far into the town overstepping their reach. But we want to provide the visibility on that. But I've totally lost my, so, you know, worst case scenario, you know, you start the project and it doesn't get completed. You know, the other thing to think about is the bond might not protect the bond you want might not be a bond that completes the project. A bond might be a bond that is enough money to restore the project back to the condition that the land was in previous to the skate park, which is a lot different than doing construct, you know, specialized construction in concrete. So, you know, there's lots of discussions there that you have to have. So
Actually, Greg, just a quick question to your point? We fully intend to document, like Greg said extensively, that we have the means to complete this project prior to putting a shovel in the ground. Is that not enough to satiate
No.
your concerns?
no.
And if so, Why not?
So I'll answer it from my end, because from my
Sure.
end, what happens if you get through your project and the last step of it is something that is an in-kind donation and those people decide to back out? You know, I don't know the order of that all your work is being done and who's donating what and when, but what
Mhm.
happens if at the end of that project, it's that person? And what happens at the end of that project when that person doesn't come through and you guys don't have the money to finish the project
Fair
and
enough.
you guys are ready to be done, you know? And
Yeah.
I mean, I've known both of you for way too long. And
Sure.
it's not that I don't trust you, but at the
No,
same
no,
time,
no. And obviously we're
Well-
looking to contractually protect ourselves as well.
And it's
But at the end
protecting
of the
the town.
day, they can still back out.
and it's protecting the town and making sure that the town comes out whole on this.
Sure.
Anna?
So, yeah, so one, I ideally, once we break ground, it'd be awesome to see the project completed. But I am not against a bond that will restore the site to its original form. I not, because I think that would be a cheaper
I think it would be.
to
Yeah.
do. Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm not
you
interested
know,
in that either. So yeah, let's
Well,
focus
I'm
on the
sorry.
goal.
I'm sorry, Anthony. Can you
Go ahead, go ahead.
So I'm not against that, and I'm not against working together to figure out what is the most economical way to help the project move forward. So that's the main thing. Is just I'm going to repeat what Karen said, which is I given Karen another scenario, which is we don't have to ask a bond if we go to town meeting and ask for the town meeting to give the town to give this okay. But I will not sign a blank check to a private group. Is either have the cash with some buffer on the bank for the cost estimated, or have a bond, or go into town meeting and ask to do that. But I aside from those three scenarios, I wouldn't agree. Like, there are 5 members in this board and I'm 1 vote, but I stand pretty clear on that it is to approve the construction without having the cash on the bank, in the bank, whatever the proposition is, and the cost has been audited and maybe even lower by a third party, and that is some buffing on that estimate because construction cost keeps going up. I would not be comfortable voting. But in my mind, there are 3 options: cash on the bank, bond, or go to town meeting, which is something that
Town
I
meeting
haven't
doesn't
talked
help.
about.
Town meeting doesn't help it, Anna.
Well, but in my mind, it will be the town saying, yeah, we're okay signing, giving a blank check, kind of a non-binding vote. So at that point, I would be comfortable giving a vote for construction. But, together, but that's all I had to say as regards to that. But if there's any other option, I'll be open for it.
All right, Chris, do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts? No, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think there has to be something in place to, kind of protect all parties involved, the town, the park, making sure things come to fruition here. I think I guess I'm in agreement to the standpoint. Let's find the most economical way for that to happen. These kids are, they're working their butts off to get to the end of this deal here. So I think if we can find the most economical way for that to happen, that's kind of where I would go and still have everybody kind of insulated and protected.
Dave, before I ask Greg a question, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, just very quickly, I would also not agree to anything that doesn't protect the town on this project, either being completed or brought back to its original condition. A couple of the projects in Townsend over the years were actually donations of land and a constructed building, but those were done on private property. So the town of Townsend didn't have a liability until the entire project was complete and it was gifted to the town. This is different. This is a private entity building on town-owned property. I believe our only due diligence that we can put forward here is that we have some type of a guarantee that it's either going to be completed by insurance funding or brought back to its original condition.
I agree. Greg, so there's the performance bond that would complete the project. Is it a different type of bond that would restore it to the original? Well, it
I don't
wouldn't be,
know
but-
what the terminology is. I'm not certain, but I think it would be cheaper for us. I have a sense that it would be a cheaper alternative for us to get a bond that would restore it than would be to complete the construction. I think, because I think that a bond for construction, the complete construction, is going to be based on the total contract value of what it costs to build it. And obviously, I think restoring it and just, pulling out what was done and bring it back is a lot less money than it would be to do, to put it together. So bonds are the cost of bonds is based on how much you're insuring. It's just like an insurance policy. $1 million life insurance policy is more expensive than a $250,000 insurance policy. So I would think that's why I raised that as an option. I think that might be a happy medium, because I think it would protect the town and get it back to originally restored condition, but it would be less out of pocket for the project. So things you have to discuss. We obviously don't intend to ever put us or the town in that position. So we see this as a, I don't know. I see it as, if I was in your shoes, I'd be asking for it. Okay, I'll be honest. And I think that it probably is in our best interest too at the end of the day, because then we're putting our best foot forward, and we can pull a piece of paper out and show the town that the town is being protected with this. So while we don't want to pay for it, don't get me wrong, we want to put the money into building skate park. I can see where the town would want to have it. But I just hope that there's a way we can minimize the cost
Yeah.
of it.
So let me, unless somebody feels differently, let me go back to town manager, and I'm going to call this a restoration bond, because I don't have another word for it right now, but see if there is, what the bond would be called if we asked for it to be brought back to the, basically remove what they put in.
Sorry, Karen.
Yeah.
One other thing that I just thought of as we've been discussing this is that, in my eyes, restoration of the area would not include replacing 60-year-old oak trees that are already gone. And that might need to be stated in that. Because if it's full restoration to original condition,
Right.
does it include the trees? I don't expect it to include the trees, but be careful that you're not tied to something like that.
Yeah. And we
This
can-
is similar to, there's been a few conservation commissions around in central Massachusetts that have required bonds actually on, which it's subject for another matter, which I think is a complete overreach of their authority. But be that as it may, they've required bonds on like a wetland crossing on a private road, a private driveway, let's say. And those bonds were put in place to restore if the contractor started the project and didn't finish it, the bond was there so that the Conservation Commission could go in and pull out all the stuff out of the wetland and resource areas and restore it back to the original condition. So I know there's precedence for this. I'm not sure what you call it, if it's still called a performance bond or if it's called something else, but I know you could do it. So
I'll investigate that part. So the other one that she mentioned was this payment bond, and I guess I just don't understand how that would protect the town, because if you guys started this project, finished it, and then didn't pay your contractor, or not your contractor, if you didn't pay one of your subcontractors, I don't think they can come after the town.
No, I think the payment bond is more, I've been 20 years out of the municipal consulting business, but we used to get payment bonds for municipally bid projects. So I think that's exactly what it's for, Karen. I think it protects the town in the event that the general contractor that the town hired did not fund or pay a subcontractor. It protects the town against claims by a subcontractor to the town. I think I'm not sure on that, but I don't think that would apply here. But again, I'm not a bond expert. I don't know exactly how that plays exactly, but so, I'm sure Adam Costa knows the answer to this
That
question.
didn't come from that one, actually. I don't think it came from Adam. I think that one came from Heather, because I actually hadn't heard that one before. I had sent an email trying to get a better understanding on this performance bond.
Yeah.
And that was the response I got.
So a classic performance bond is like I mentioned with the subdivision example. Before they break ground, the town requires a cost estimate to be prepared, which assigns a value for the entire build. And the bond amount is set. And as the project goes through and they build the road or they construct the drainage, they can reduce the bond amount at the approval of the town, right? So as they build, as you get through the project, you can actually go to the town and you can have them release certain portions of the bond, which reduces the funding. And I to be quite honest with you, I deal with it, but I have no idea how much it costs for my clients to fund those things and what the ramifications are of reducing it. I just know that it's done, and bonding is just, my sense is it's fairly flexible. It's an insurance policy, right? So you can kind of structure it in a number of different ways. So that's all.
Right. I'll go back to, so I'm going to go back to town manager with some additional questions, but if I'm reading the room correctly right now, the 4 commissioners are all in agreement that a performance bond of some sort, whether it's a performance bond for completion or to restore the site into its natural or its beginning where it started, is going to be something that we're looking to require of the skate park group. Anybody disagree with that? So at least Anthony and Greg are going off tonight saying, oh, now the Parks Commission is going to expect this of us at a minimum.
Yeah, a minimum, like, yes. I think there are other details of that, I think we should, like, the design standards, what, something, I'm not saying we should have, but we should talk about it if we will have, especially as we are discussing the master plan. But that is, I think that, in the end, I'm more confident that the skate park group and us, we all want to have a beautiful park. So I think that's an easy, I don't see that becoming a deal breaker, but the financial, how we're going to pay for is something that it is a bit of a deal breaker for me. And so,
Okay.
Yeah.
So at a minimum, we're going to be looking at that. I will get more information, and then we can figure out if there's, if there's a different name to something for restoration versus completion. And I'll get that information out to everybody. That sound good?
Sounds good.
Anna, I do want to circle back right now, though, to some of your comments. I want to make sure that we're putting anything forward that all of our expectations are getting out to them as soon as possible. Do you want, is there you've mentioned design standards. I guess I'm not sure which direction you want the commission to run with some of this. If it's something that you want to have as a discussion this evening, if it's something that you want to have as a discussion at our next regular meeting, which will probably at this point be late March into early April.
Okay, so so the main thing about the design that I think it's important is that it goes with, you know, it is a good match for the master plan that we're going to create. The problem is we don't have the master plan ready yet, but it will be, and I'm not an architect or an engineer, so I wouldn't be able to kind of, you know, spell out what that would be. But I think the first thing is we would need our master plan to be ready. So then we can, you know, Walla might be one that could kind of give us give us some information about that. What would be some design standards? And that would match our master plan. That's my main thing. And I think it'll be important to do that, but we can't do it yet, in my view. The second thing is, you know, and I think this would be a question for the group, which is, do we have any concerns about any, you know, type of equipment, or I don't even know what they call it, rides or ramps that it would have on the park? And if we say, oh, we don't have any concerns, you know, I'll go, okay, we don't have any concerns about that. It would just be more of the design, making sure it matches the master plan. But I don't know if anybody here has any concerns about type of equipment that's going to be there. I'm going to just call it equipment, because I'm not sure what would be called.
I
know it's all
think that
relative.
seriously puts us into the weeds.
I think so as well.
Go ahead, Karen.
No, I think so as well. And to be honest with you, Anna, I don't feel as though I have enough experience with designing skate parks, using skate parks, to even know if I have a strong opinion on what any of that should or would be. I know that this is you know, when we talk about, I think we're talking like aesthetically, making sure it's aesthetically into that park.
Mm-hmm.
It is a concrete, the skate park's a concrete structure. You know, it's, how do you know, I mean, it's going to meld the best that it can into the surroundings with the fact that it's a concrete structure. I don't think there's an alternate thing that could be used to create something so that it looks like it aesthetically looks like it should match the park perfectly. But I
think there are things that, again, I'm not an architect, and I don't have the language for it, but I think, you know, maybe we can shoot a quick email to Walla and ask them, you know, if we were to put it, you know, one paragraph of there would be a design standard that would match with their master plan, you know, what would be that paragraph be? Because, you know, like, yeah, I mean, I remember, I forgot her name, but she was presenting, she said, you know, simple things as, you know, the direction in which the park is aimed can make a big difference visually. You know, something else that I know, for example, if you have, you know, to create a green space between, I don't know, but there might be some language there that should come from an architect, an architectural designer, that can kind of create a basics of what that standard should be.
Okay.
And I think I think they would have that.
And just to make sure I understand, this is more aesthetically correct? You're looking to make sure it aesthetically is fitting into the environment.
Right. And if we don't have any concerns about what type of equipment is there, I'm cool with that. I also don't have any expertise that you don't, but I think it's a question, you know, I want to ask the question for the group. Do we have any concerns?
I don't, as long as it doesn't look like a swimming pool. because that's not what we're putting in. I mean, like that's or, the end of the day,
Thoughts?
I think that this is where I will put trust in them, and that they're working with people that do this. They're working with skate park designers, and I can guarantee you there is no skate park designer who is going to want to create something and ruin their reputation because what they created is an eyesore or is that's where my professional, like where I look at a professional and say, this is what they do for a living. And
So Karen, if I
Yeah.
can address all
Yeah.
these points. So this is exactly why we're talking with the folks at WOLA. This is why we established those lines of communication to exactly avoid any sort of a situation where, because at the end of the day, you have two different designers, and there's a lot of art at play here, right? So you have artistic vision number one, artistic vision number two, and each one of them, I'm sure, is going to think these are the best things, designs, practices that they can put forth. But at the end of the day, to Anna's point, they might not match, right? So it's very much our intent to make sure that they align, they're cohesive, they made up perfectly from both a design and a physical perspective. So at the end of the day, it looks like they were designed ideally by the same person, the same outfit, and just flow. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, it does. And what I'm looking for is to have a short paragraph in whatever documents, the town signs with the skate park that describes just that, or
We're
that's
already
it.
working on it. Yeah, that's very much the best practice and something that we've been intent on since the beginning of this.
Right. No, I know that is the intent. I would like
Yeah.
something, in the contract, which is perfect.
Sure.
So yeah, like I said, I didn't think this would be a deal breaker.
all right. So I'll ask, let me see if there's something. And I mean, I know, because I've been part of the conversations when Anthony's met with WOLA. So I can certainly, I don't mind going back and asking. I don't know if they'll have anything for us because the skate park side wasn't necessarily what they bargained for, but I don't mind asking and seeing what I get. So I'll stay tuned on that, Anna.
I think some of that's going to
Okay,
be
thank you.
dictated. I mean, we're going to have come May, we're going to have a master plan and have a semblance of what this is going to look like. And to your point, Karen, and to Anthony's point, I think, there's not a skate park designer architect that is going to want to put something somewhere that doesn't speak aesthetically and doesn't mold with a town or with a, I think it's bigger than even Marshall Park. I mean, they're looking to build something that's going to mold with the town and blend with the town as a whole. But I think they're going to have a semblance of, there's going to be a master plan to share with whoever the skate park architect is, and they're going to have a sense of what that's going to look like, and they're going to be able to put something together that's going to gel with the rest of that layout. That being said, the skate park's probably going to be in place before any aspect of the Marshall Park master plan is in place. And I don't, the skate park's not going to dictate what that's going to look like, obviously. But we're going to have a sense, I think too, going forward, that the first physical, likely the first physical structure that's going to appear in Marshall Park is going to be the skate park. And so as the master plan continues and physical aspects of that start to go, we're going to be able to work that end of it as well and make sure it's all a cohesive sort of deal. So.
Great. All right.
And
Thank you.
it'll let, in a small way, WOLA has already addressed one request that they had, and the skate park has been very agreeable with it. And that was Greg, was a 20-foot shift. It wasn't a lot, but it was 20 or 40 feet that they shifted the park or rotated it. I'm not sure which, but and that was in an effort to fit some of the things that WOLA was working on to fit into that area, that general area of the park. And I'm not sure what the other reasons were, but that tells me that WOLA is already looking at you know, how that fits into everything else that they're trying to work in around it.
Yeah, if I may.
Oh, well,
I recall there being a slight difference between the two plans, the options that they put in.
Mhm.
And that's actually a little bit of a big deal for us because we need to know where it's going to go, even if it's a 20-foot shift or a 90-degree shift, or we need to, before we design it, we need to know that. So we're kind of waiting for Wola to finish that and to get at least an idea. We need to know where the footprint's going to go. So is it where we're currently showing it, or is it shifted 40 feet and rotated 90 degrees?
Yeah,
No,
so the plans, one had them, you know, in their words, were exactly where, you know, we had said you guys could use that land, and then the other one did have it shifted. We meet with Wola again on Wednesday, the 16th of March. I think that's
Okay.
so we will hopefully have more feedback, and then there's a couple more there's a couple more things that happen, like they'll take our feedback again and they'll go back, and there's a couple of back and forth that we're going to have with them. But our contract with them actually ends on May 1st. So
okay.
the
So
end of
you'll
the
have an
day,
answer by then. You'll have an answer by then, yeah.
that's my hope.
So,
Maybe
well, yeah,
some-
just to flush that out a little bit more, one of the, you know, one of the initial things we need to do is to do a geotechnical evaluation to assess, you know, we've done soil testing there, but we're going to have a geotechnical engineer give us a report so that we can, you know, make sure that this thing is constructed on the appropriate base and it's drained correctly and all that stuff that geotechnical engineers do. And I don't want to launch that effort and have them focus over here, you know, if
If
we're
you
now
can-
we're going to put it over here. So so that's kind of why we're waiting. And you know, we'll be anxious to see how that plays out. So
Okay. All right, thank you. And Anthony, thank you for freeing up some time to join us. I know you guys are super busy, and Greg, you as well.
Meeting to
Greg,
meeting.
yeah, you should probably
I
go
got one
home.
after
Make
this.
sure make sure your family knows you exist, Greg. So,
I
all
have
right,
one more quick question. I'll let you guys know.
sure.
How possible or likely is it that the design that's quote unquote done on, let's say, May 1st
Mm-hmm.
is going to change after that date? Is that even remotely possible?
Well, I mean, I guess it could be, but I mean, if we just spent all of this money and time going through this process, I don't anticipate that it would. And I think I wouldn't anticipate it changing, Anthony.
Not of anything of significance, I wouldn't think.
I mean, we then have to figure out funding as well after that. So,
Sure.
you know, I mean, but you're part of you know, you're part of Marshall Park. We don't have to figure out funding for. So, you know, that
But everything else obviously is the much bigger picture.
it is,
and
but
a lot more moving parts.
I don't think that if what you're asking is if at the end of this come May 1st, that if we all agree on a plan and that's the direction we're going in, would there be a move that could push you
Impact us.
back? I would not anticipate that at all. Not at all.
Put it out there. Good to know. Put my mind at ease. Thank you.
Yep. So.
Cool.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
thanks,
Have a
everybody. We
wonderful day.
appreciate it. Again, like we say,
Absolutely.
you know, every time we consider this a partnership, and we appreciate you putting us on the agenda, because all these little short, although we've probably been talking about it half an hour, sessions really help us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Much appreciated. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
All right,
Bye-bye.
so the next thing on our agenda is actually is going back to the beach season 2022. So I don't think we need to necessarily beat a dead horse. I think that Rob is aware of obviously the issues that Jared has brought up. We know we have the job descriptions are out. I did look at them a few minutes ago. So those jobs have been posted. He'll be doing the interviewing, it sounds like sometime in March to bring forward to us. We will then make our recommendation to town manager. I think, Rob, you're just gonna have to keep on everybody, because I think with a change of the guard over at the DPW, we don't want to let any of this stuff slide to the wayside. So we're gonna need to make sure we keep up on it. We have a better understanding of the structural integrity of the beach house that obviously needs some work. I will ask the questions on how that's going to get funded, and if the Parks Commission needs to, if there's anything that we need to do on that side. Policy wise, so the life jacket stuff that Jared brought up, some of this is outside. I'm going to call it our pay grade. Some of it I feel is not it becomes more of a day-to-day thing that we actually don't have to be involved with. We want to obviously make sure that they're following state law. So if Rob decides that it's something that we need to make a park commission policy on, we can certainly do that. But I'm not, off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of any other beach season 2022 stuff. Does anybody else have anything?
We're gonna fees and all that kind of deal. We don't need to go through.
Oh,
any of
we
that
haven't,
stuff.
we didn't. So that's a tough one.
We did the rental policy last year, so I'm sure we're okay with. I don't think that needs to be revisited. I think we did a pretty deep dive on rental policy and all that kind of stuff.
And last year we
Lifeguards required and all that kind of deal.
raised our rates. Was it last year that we raised our rates?
No, we readjusted the whole rate structure last year. The raise was the year before
Okay.
for the beach.
I don't know what everybody else's opinion, and if we want to raise them, we can. I think I firmly think holding the status quo right now wouldn't
Yeah.
hurt anything. I would like to, I'd like to focus more on getting our beach up and just getting more people in there. And, yes, it's an interesting piece of property, and yes, it's a beach on a hill, and yes, we have a weed problem, but it's a jewel of a place. I mean, my own children played for hours and hours and hours on end down there, and it would be great to see that. And I feel like we started to see a bump in visits with COVID, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen now that COVID seems to be sitting a little bit further on the back burner than it has previously. I don't know, I'm just thinking holding the status quo isn't going to do any harm. We're not breaking even there anyway. We are in the red going into on the parks line item for under the DPW for our lifeguards. We're coming in on the red, but nobody's ever fully explained to us how to expend that revolving account. And I don't know, what, 4 years ago, Dave, I think you were at this meeting that I had said, I thought that swim lessons should be not making money, but should be self-funded. And I think we got them to that point. So that money there should have been expended on, salaries. And somebody Rob, that you can put that on your to-do list. Somebody on the town side needs to finally explain to us how this money needs to be expended from revolving accounts, how the beach money that's coming in to cover salaries for lifeguards for swim lessons is being transferred over.
Will do.
Personally,
It's on my priority.
in my eyes, I think the goal should be to have that account be neutral going into July 1. And I think we've talked about this a little bit. I think the easiest way is to cover that deficit before the end of the fiscal year out of the revolving account.
I mean, they always make it work, to be clear on this. And maybe based on the fact that money seems to go back to free cash left and right from our account, we shouldn't overthink it, but you know, it's, it always gets covered. It's not like being in the red doesn't mean that our lifeguards aren't going to get paid or that we're not going to open until July 1st. It just
Oh, yeah,
means,
no, definitely.
you know, money has to get shuffled around.
But it just doesn't make any sense to me to run a deficit into the next fiscal year when you've got
Yeah, I
money
don't
in an
think
account that
that-
can cover it.
Yeah, no, I don't think it does. I don't think it runs to the next year in a deficit. I think they balance it beforehand. And I don't know how he's balanced it in the past, either of our previous, or Rob Oliver or our previous rec director. I mean, our previous DPW director, so. All right, does anybody else have anything on the beach?
Rob, you have all the rates and everything you need.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, everything that was up to date. I have everything
Okay.
to include electronic beach passes, so they can just
Okay.
be touchless.
Okay,
Cool.
Rob, can you figure out a better way of our money management over there? So we, by law, when COVID started, everything seemed to go by way of online and credit cards and whatever. But by law, we have to accept cash. So,
Absolutely.
but that also, that's not just for seasons passes, where that's a little bit easier, where they can just come into the DPW and make a payment for a season pass. It has to be day-to-day passes too. And that's where I think figuring out how to handle that at the beach is going to be important, because in years past, and this, if you haven't figured this out yet, really bothers me when our employees have to put money out of their own pocket to cover the starts of things. So for example, her petty cash drawer, she's always funded herself. And I don't think we should expect that of our employees. So if we could figure out a way to handle that down there with beach, plus with how, you know, deposits have to be made. I know she knows, our previous beach director, she obviously knew how to do all that because she'd been doing it for years. Just want to make sure that there's, it makes sense and that there's good record keeping, especially where she didn't have to deal with you last year on that stuff, because I think you didn't come on till a little bit later. There was
No.
another, oh goodness, I had another one, but I can't, literally in the last 10 seconds, it's left my head. All
We
right,
can look into making sure we have an actual point of sale system with cash handling procedures. So I'll make
Okay.
sure we're on top of that before we get to that level
Okay.
of anybody putting money up.
thank you. Thank you. All right. And that, of course, will be revisited again. All right, next on our agenda is something that I know very little about. Portable toilets at Marshall Park. Dave Passios.
Yeah, I meant to call Rob today. Rob, do you have that stuff with you? Because
Right, so why don't
I-
I give everybody the gist then? So here's the gist. A couple of months ago, Dave had worked with Rob Oliver, and Rob had given his blessing for Dave to go off and get some quotes on what it would cost for the Parks Commission to put portable toilet facilities at all of our parks, not just Marshall Park, at all of our parks. And now here we are.
and I haven't had a follow-up conversation with Rob. Part of that conversation also was that, and this came from Rob, I didn't initiate this part of it, was that he was very confident that if we go that route, that would be paid out of the revolving account. Because that, you know, directly uses money that was collected by users of those facilities. And it brings the service back to them with the money they paid. So the proposals that I asked for were to put, let's see if I can remember what it was, three units at Marshall Park, one at Wallace Park, one at McNally, and one at Fitzgerald. And it was a contract for April 1st through, Rob, remind me, October
I
1st,
think
or
into-
I can't remember
October.
exactly. Yeah, through October, aligning with our original thought that we closed our parks on November 1st. So we have 3 formal quotes. We do not have to go out to bid on it. We can choose from those 3 quotes. As one addition to that process, as I spoke with the vendors, one in particular, they all made comments about it, but one in particular was very concerned about the experiences they've had with putting portable toilets on municipal properties, is that if there is no way for people to get rid of their trash, then all the trash ends up in the portable toilets, as we saw last summer. So I also, and again, we'd have to get a couple more quotes on it, but I did get a quote from a vendor who is willing to supply, I think they're 85-gallon trash containers to put one next to each of the portable toilets, and they would be emptied weekly. And that number was, that was a pretty decent number also.
So Dave, I have a question.
Yep.
What is, give me a ballpark number when you're talking about porta potties in the rental of them, because give me a ballpark number of what it would cost to have these in there.
Rob, do you have them handy? Otherwise I gotta pull them out of my computer. And I don't
Yeah,
wanna
I don't
overwhelm
have my database of, I do not have my laptop, so there's no way unless I have the direct email. I'm looking for it right now.
I meant to pull this stuff up and I was busy researching something else this afternoon.
Yeah, I don't have a ballpark number, but I think it was close to around, I want to say it's well over $3,000 for the season, but it seemed rather reasonable. But at the same time, I'm not sure of what type of manpower it would take to basically have these on site and lock them up after hours, 7 days a week, or at least during operations of activities. So
Honestly, my intent is that they're open 24/7.
Okay.
And the vendors, none of them had a problem with that from their experiences.
So I have concerns / hesitation / I don't know what. So first off, we didn't raise what we're charging Little League. So let's be honest in all of this. With the exception of Wallace Park, the prime user, and actually the only user for the most part of especially McNally and Fitzgerald, is the Little League. I don't believe we would even be collecting enough from them to cover the cost of these portable toilets. That's my first thing. Second, I understand the not wanting to lock them. I get that piece, but I'm concerned about leaving a portable toilet facility, especially down at Wallace Park. It's that's in a neighborhood. You know, I don't want to do anything that is going to create issues down there. And I don't know, I don't know the usage of a portable toilet that 24 hours a day. I just don't, who's going to, are people going to try to come in and use it at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning? Is it going to be a magnet for kids to, be down there screwing around and, porta potty tipping? I don't know if that's a thing, like cow tipping. Is it porta potty tipping a thing? I don't know. But, and then the other thing is that, Fitzgerald and McNally they're not used like, I don't think they had anybody over there in the fall. So to be paying for a portable toilet for the handful, I mean, I certainly want to make it available to our residents, but I don't know if we have enough residents that actually use those on the off season to warrant putting in porta potties through October at, say, Fitzgerald and McNally. But I'm still stuck on them. It's a big cost of, it's just an increased cost. If we add, and if we do have to revisit our trash policy, in order to put these in, there is an expense on that side. And I do think that the DPW could figure out a way to make it work if they had to go down and deal with trash once a week. But if it's 2 or 3 times a week, I don't know if they have the bandwidth to be able to do that.
They're not gonna touch it. DPW will have nothing to do with the trash,
So who would empty the trash?
the contractor.
Yeah,
Wait,
Same as the portable toilets being serviced by a contractor,
So-
the trash would be picked up weekly.
So, but what happens if it needs more than, because I'll tell you now, if we put,
And they'll come by because they're operating in town for 5 days a week. That
So
particular
I-
vendor, and I'm sure I've got a couple others that I'm sure we can contact to get a quote.
I think we'd have to my biggest concern, I mean, the cost is one, but I think the locking of them. And so, because I think the policy would be set with a baseball with Little League. If they have to lock it when they're not in use.
Because they were paying for those portable toilets to be there.
But we saw, and
I never
we-
agreed with locking them. All the area towns around here that I've visited, basketball courts, parks, they have portable toilets and they're available 24/7 for the season that they're out there. To my understanding, talking with the vendors, there's an occasional rollover, but you guys decide what you want to do. That's fine. I disagree that there's any issues. And we need to, the Board of Health is going to be watching very closely for this summer because we're not going to have facilities installed at Marshall Park, permanent facilities at Marshall Park this year that I can see. And so that, blows any programming options.
it doesn't though, because we can bring in portable toilets if we're running our own programming. I mean, it wouldn't change anything. It would still allow Little League to bring in their portable facilities for their programming needs.
I see it as a service to the taxpayers. They're paying, everybody's complaining about
But
paying.
who are we
for taxes,
servicing,
not
Dave?
getting services.
We don't have anybody using these, really have anybody
That's
using.
not
these.
true, Karen. There's people with these parks year round.
Tell me, because I drive by Fitzgerald all the time and I very
And you
rarely.
sit there
see anybody.
365 days a year and you don't see it and
not
No.
to the point that, like, here's the thing, like I see if I were to just give a couple thoughts here, I see this toilets and also trash to be the most need when there is a large gathering at these fields. None of our conservation land, like someone is using the parks for leisure, for walk, for what have you. It's pretty much kind of like all our conservation lands and open space is around town. I mean, there's no portable toilets around anywhere in town. So if you say, there is a park that's more heavily used, like Marshall Park, that, the Little League is there. We have other games there, and and more people gather there. I say, oh, okay, that makes sense. But the other parks, outside those events, it's very, very little foot traffic. And it's similar to our conservation other properties. There's no toilets on those and people still go. So, and I would think that, the trash thing, the trash collection and cleaning up, also is an issue, but it's also an issue mostly when there is a large gathering. So, I think what we have with the Little League kind of makes sense, where there is a program using the parks, and there will be a large gathering, and therefore they will need toilets, and therefore they will need trash, and we have an arrangement with them. If we go to run a summer program, we'll then bring the portable parties to the need. But outside that, I mean, there's just not that much. I don't see it.
Okay, and who's going to manage all of this?
Well, that's a question for you. You're the one who wants to bring that in. Who you had in mind?
No, I'm talking about your scenario. Who's going to manage your scenario? That means you're going to have to be dealing on a week by week basis as to when the toilets are going to be there, when they're not going to be there. You have to tell the Board of Health when a portable toilet is placed on the property and when it's going to be removed. So you're going to have to tell them every time you put one on and remove it, put one on, remove it. You have to get their okay.
I don't think we would be doing that. We'll be run some programs during the summer, and it will be starting July 10th. Will be a porta party there, and it will stop August 10th. Porta party removed, and that's it. And if we want to,
if you guys don't want to do it, I've put as much energy as I'm willing to put into it for now. But I think it's a good service to the public, and I think the numbers are good, and that's the way I'll leave it.
Chris, do you have anything that you want to say on the subject?
I'd like to see, I think before we invest, I'd like to see where we are with, with programming and what that looks like, and kind of the direction in which we head. We have Rob that's new in his position. This is going to be the first summer with maybe, with some summer programming. We have, I'd like to see what that's all gonna look like, what numbers look like, and kind of where that goes. And then I think if it's warranted, it's something that we can look at. But I also think if it's warranted, there's some cost that needs to be shared with groups that are using some of these facilities.
And that's why it comes out of the revolving account. That's how you share the cost.
So.
Right.
But I think we're not passing enough of, like, what we're charging for use of land isn't necessarily equating to, what that cost is compared to the groups that are using the land. I think it needs to be shared accordingly, I guess, would be what my thought is on that.
Public parks are owned by the public. So whether it's an entity that's using the facilities or using the parks, or it's the general taxpayer that uses it occasionally, I'll guarantee you that if you put it out there as to the public and the taxpayers, that with the simple dollar amounts that it is, this takes care of a lot of issues. But I'm done. The Board of Health is going to be on this.
Dave, but that's a threat that
We're not. That this took care of the entire problem for the season.
It doesn't, though. It doesn't take care of the entire problem, Dave, because all it does is it starts to solve part of a problem that I think we all can say that, yes, we would all love to, in a perfect world, have a perfect setup where portable or bathroom facilities in general are going to be available for everybody. But there's pieces that come with that. So while it could solve part of one problem, it can create another one. And trash it would be the biggest one, because you want to put in trash barrels over there and change the carry in, carry out policy that we've had going on. We were all on Baseball's, and we were all on Baseball's case about trash being left outside their dumpster because they chose to put the dumpster there, and people think that they can just invite themselves to leave trash there. Well, now it shifts it from their problem to our problem, and somebody on the town side has to deal with it. So it's not as, I understand what you're saying. And I'm not saying that the public's not worth it. I don't believe personally that we have a strong enough of a public use that is going in there for long periods of time that need to have access other than the baseball programs to a portable bathroom facility. I can tell you, I have spent decades going to soccer games for my daughters at public venues, and the majority of them had no bathroom facilities, and we had no issue. It's just the nature of what it was. We stopped on our way. Whatever we had to do, that's what we did. So,
I would suspect conservation land has more public use than some of our parks from just a general public use standpoint. I would hazard, or I would suspect that we see more traffic at Cowdrey or Peabody or, wherever, where there's not these facilities than we do at Fitzgerald or McNally. I'm not discrediting the work the effort you're putting in, Dave. And I think there's going to be a time possibly where it is a little more warranted. I don't think we're there yet. And again, I think, let's get a look at summer programming. It's obviously going to be something that, with summer programming, if we're running those kinds of programs with respects to what we've run into in the past, it's going to be something that Rob's going to have to look at. And make sure that if there is a summer program and it's not at TCP with a bathroom, that, yes, there's a usable facility for the duration of our summer programming at Marshall Park or whatever, or Wallace or wherever we're running summer programming. But I think we're ahead of, I think dropping these at all of our parks for 6 months is ahead of I think we're jumping the gun on that a little bit, I think, at this point.
Okay, well, the Parks Commission needs to notify the Little League then that they're going to be on their own for their portable toilets, because if we don't take some action now, they're going to need to start taking action,
Well,
I don't know why they would think they wouldn't have to.
different.
because they're aware of this process,
Which process?
that this was possibly in the works. So I want to make sure that they know that this
communicated
is not
that with-
moving forward.
Well, I'm confused. When did we take a vote to,
We didn't take a vote on anything, Anna. It was just shared that that the work was being done to propose this. So if they haven't moved forward with their usual process, which now they gotta, we spent all last summer trying to get the documentation that's required to have those toilets even there. And if
He's
you wanna
changing his
wait,
venue on that,
wait,
or vendor rather, excuse me. Isn't he changing his venue?
well,
Okay.
we can end the discussion at this point.
okay,
I'm
I'm
done.
cool with that.
And I ask that we pass over agenda item 9.
You don't want to talk about property?
Nope.
Okay,
You guys can if you want. I may be stepping into another meeting here in a minute. I'm trying to
Okay.
figure out if they're still on.
they are still on. I can hear Chris in the other room.
Okay, I'm gonna be jumping off this meeting
all right.
then. I'm
Thank
done
you.
for tonight. Thank
Thank
you.
All right, so Anna, do you have an open space update or any information on what's going on that side of things?
I had to miss the last meeting, which was last week. Work's been busy, and they didn't publish the minutes yet, so I don't have more
fine.
recent. I know the last time they were going to be talking about tax lien,
Yeah,
so I don't know if they took a vote and what was the vote.
they did. So you might, so that was the other thing on the list. So the list did come over to us from town manager on the tax lien stuff. And there was a discussion this past Tuesday at the select board meeting. I don't fully understand the process of this whole tax lien stuff. And some of the properties that are on that tax lien list, they'll come off of it before anything moves forward anyway, because people will see it and they'll jump on and they'll pay. So that will come off, but it may be worth just watching the select board meeting, just that section, it was at the very beginning, and actually somebody from
Okay.
Open Space was there. I do think that it's worthy of watching and seeing what's going down with, you know, any other municipal properties that, you know, are going up for discussion.
Mhm.
So I know that Dave, part of the reason Dave was interested in looking at some of this is he'd like to figure out a place to put a dog run. So, you know, obviously he's not with us right now, but,
Right.
yeah.
You know,
so-
like, I mean, I'm happy to have a discussion about that, but since you brought that up, you know, we have, this is my opinion, not the opinion of the board, of course, because I'm speaking. You know, we have a lot of properties in town that's open to, you know, to dogs, and within with the laws that we have and leash law and so forth, and even though it's leash law should be under control, the voice control and yada yada, the reality is, you know, we have so much property, and when people get there, their dogs usually run off leash, and that's, you know, and I we don't really have a lot of problems in town with regards to that. The, you know, Marshall Park it's visited by a lot of people with dogs. And the reason, one of the reasons for that is because of location, right? Location, location. And people go there because there's the sidewalks. They go, you know, a lot of them have little dogs. They walk to Marshall Park. They let their dogs run around a little bit, and that happens. And it's useful because of that. And that's why there's a lot of people with dogs there. This is my opinion. Putting a dog run property in the middle of nowhere is the same as, in my opinion, as our other properties, you know, that we can take our dogs to. And we also have, you know, part of the proposal that we have on our master plan is to maybe have a small dog area in Marshall Park. So I don't know why we would be exploring one more thing when we have a lot of big things happening. And
I was just about to say that. I was just about to, the way I'm looking at it is that as a park commission, we have this Marshall Park stuff going on. Once this is out of the master planning, once the master planning is done, the execution of finding funding and getting all of the ducks in a row to get this done, it's a tremendous amount of work. We have a very large parcel of land off of Northfield Road that is still something at some point will most likely be done. Although I never want to see a piece of property, you know, especially the general municipal stuff, once we have it, I don't want us to sell it off. So unless somebody's going to come and say to us, we're looking to sell this piece of land, you know, I'm a firm believer that if once it's gone, it's gone. But at the same time, I look at this tax lien stuff, and I think there are some interesting pieces of property in there. I think there's a whole lot that we're not interested in, but then I have to put the brakes on again and say, wait a second, we still have all of these things in front of us. So, yeah.
So it sounds like you agree with me.
I do.
Yeah. And you know, like if you have a big dog and you're gonna drive anywhere, you know, like unless you're outside, unless you're in town center, you're gonna be driving somewhere. Actually, if you're in Wayland area, you know, I think if we were to talk about it, I think maybe having something in the Wayland area would be interesting for a dog area, because it's more densely populated. There's smaller lots there because there's been sewer there longer. It would make sense there, but you put a dog run in the middle of Bird Street, just doesn't add anything.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, there are definitely some interesting properties on here, but they also made a really good point last night at the, you know, or Tuesday night at the select board meeting. And one of those comments was, you know, if the town tries to take these via however they take property, they lose out on those taxes. And some of the taxes owed are pretty significant. So,
Right.
you know, their conversation was to be continued. That I do know. So,
Well, I know, one of the thing of open space committee, and I mean, they're talking about, reserving maybe properties, designate properties that can be used for other uses other than just being under general use. But, there is also the possibility of recommending some of these properties to go back to, to the books, because Lunenburg actually has a lot of land that, we owe and we're not collecting taxes on it. And although it's nice, there's a lot of very small parcels that it might be developed, but that's the point of a town is, maybe be developed or not, or maybe the abutters can buy it if they don't want to be developed, what have you. But it would be more money coming into town. So
all right. I'm assuming you don't have anything on this, Chris.
I mean, I like what Anna said from the standpoint. I mean, I can see something over, in the Whalum area maybe, or something like that. But I mean, if we're looking at one at Marshall Park, and I know there's opinions on that in Marshall Park, but I think it serves a purpose there. I mean, we do have a lot of land, and yes, there's places all over town where you can go walk your dog, but there isn't really, you can't go take your dog off leash on conservation land and let dogs just play. Right. I mean, you can take your dog for a walk. That's also land, the conservation land, where people are going to take their dogs, is land that's not accessible, not as easily accessible to some folks who have dogs, that need exercise. It's going to be easier for them to take dogs to a park or to a fenced in area and walk their dog there on a flat level space, and not worry about stumps and sticks and rocks and so forth. So I mean, I think it serves a purpose, but I think if we can, if it is something to explore over time, I could potentially see some sort of deal in a convenient spot in the Whalum area. But yeah, to Anna's point, like a dog run on Burridge, or somewhere out at the end of Lancaster Ave or whatnot, is not, I think, where we need to be focusing our time. At this moment, I'd maybe support looking at something on the Whalum side of town, because it's not near what we'd be doing here in the center of town. So something that way might be worthwhile exploring as we go along in this path. But I think there's a lot going on right now. So maybe not pile more on yet.
Yep. You guys will be excited to know that I actually left this agenda item, the next one, on by mistake. So I have nothing to discuss on the Marshall Park survey. We had talked about it last time. I have had a conversation with Julie Beliveau about, getting it put together so that we could approve it. And so once the money source is, voted on, it, whether it be through capital planning at town meeting or however, we can get it out there, but she doesn't have anything ready for us right now. So that'll be coming.
You said the Zoom link on the poster that Wola shared with us was good, right?
Yep, I did check it. Yep.
Okay. So I'll kind of towards the end of February break, I'll start to circulate that around the Facebook interwebs and so forth, and make sure that town manager has a copy to post on the website and things like that.
Remind me, we'll ask Rob to post it, but can you remind me, just because I'm not around right now to keep my brain going, but last time I sent it to Little League, I think I sent it to basketball, the Phillies. I sent it to a bunch of places. I'll go back on I sent it to the library, the senior center. I'll go back in my emails and I'll forward this new one to the same people around the same time you do that. So
cool.
Hey, Pat, are you still with us? I don't know if he's still with us.
I am still here. I am driving home.
Oh, awesome. Can you give us like a
Honk when you go by.
Yeah.
I'm on Route 2 in Littleton, so.
All right, don't honk.
I would tell you where I was, but you'd all be jealous. And no, my house is
Yeah, well, I
empty,
kind of
so-
heard that about what you said for temperatures. So
Yeah, so I don't anybody get any funky ideas when you catch this tomorrow on YouTube. My house is not unoccupied. It is very well occupied. Pat, do you want to take a couple of seconds and introduce yourself to us? Because I know that the Parks Commission, the Select Board, when we meet in early March, the first thing they're going to say is, did you have a chance to talk with them? And I'd love to be able to say yes for the first time.
well, the other two on the commission, well, Chris and I are neighbors, and
Yes.
our kids are good friends, so we hang out all the time together. I've been in town for over 30 years, and my family has been in town since the 1800s. So I guess you could call me a lifer. I work for the Maynard Fire Department full time, and I just retired from Lunenburg last year. I put 30 years in there, and it was just time. I had too many things going on, too busy.
Yep.
But Chris has probably said I'm trying to get that Marshall Pond skating rink up and running the past couple of years. So once I found out there was an opening and to help out with that Marshall Park, really kind of like stirred my interest. So
Awesome.
I'm really I'm excited about that whole project.
Yeah, I'm excited to have a new voice and some new ideas. Although the three of you all live in the center of town, that's, like, could you spread yourselves out a little bit? Like, and even Dave's in the center of town. I'm the only outlier here. I feel like the outsider.
We'll put a dog park down by you.
You'll put.
We'll let a dog run
That
over your
would be
way.
okay. That'd be okay. Although you probably will get a lot of bears. We have a decent bear population over there. So, so awesome. Thank you for that, Pat. I appreciate it. I don't think we've ever really met in person before because my kids are.
No, I don't think you and I have ever. We might have crossed paths, but
Yeah.
and I met Anna last year on the pond, actually.
Okay.
That we were out skating. My kids were out skating, and she came out skating.
She did on ice
Yeah.
skate. You did?
Yeah,
Oh.
I can send you a video if you want. I did it again this year.
Well, okay.
The only thing I do have to say is I'm hoping to get out and unthaw the nets out of the pond tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Before something happens.
They're in some ice. That last storm, they're buried.
Yeah, well, today it looked like they opened up a little. So I'm kind of hoping with the rain and stuff tonight and tomorrow, it
Little
might
wiggle.
them out a little, or a little sledgehammer, but
Let me know when you're going down there.
Don't go for a swim, please. We don't need to see any
I'll
live.
stand on the edge with a ring, throw it to them.
That's
Throw
right.
it.
we do have that.
Great. Great. Great.
I have warm water that I'm gonna bring home from Sterling too. So maybe that might help too.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you for that introduction. So we will see you so as for the commission, the next time our next posted agenda is actually for March 8th. It's a Tuesday night.
Yep.
It's with the select board, 7:05, but you know how it normally goes with them. They are aware that the Parks Commission may have a problem with a quorum that evening between myself being away and Dave's work schedule. There may be an issue with a quorum, but they're aware of that. And I don't think it's going to be an issue because their meeting will be called to order. So it shouldn't be an issue, but I am going to try to jump on. So that'll
Is
be
that also Zoom?
It should be because they're still, it
Okay.
better be because I posted a link and I am not in the state of Massachusetts. So
Well, I figured that too. I was just making sure for my.
yeah, no,
So
I'm
I
pretty sure that it is. I think I sent you over both the agendas. So
Yeah, you did.
I did put
And I
there.
didn't. Yep.
Yeah, I did put the select board link on there. So
Okay.
awesome. All right, so that is our next meeting with the select board. Our next park commission meeting is actually going to be March
16th with Wola.
16th with WOLA. They will be present. And it's gonna be strictly WOLA stuff. So yeah, I think we are good. I will work on the minutes of this meeting because I have some downtime. It's not a vacation for my husband, so when he's working, maybe I can get some minutes done. So, all right, I think we are all set. Can I get a motion to adjourn at 9:08?
Oh,
Motion
actually,
to
one quick
adjourn?
before we,
Yep. Oh,
one
yep.
question quick.
Sorry.
With Rob, learning that Rob Oliva's leaving.
Yep.
Are we part of that? Like, what's the steps on that? Are we part of that process at all? Do we meet with anybody or any that way where we ultimately kind of fall into that realm or anything like that?
Nope. At least
Nope.
we weren't when Rob Oliver was brought on. So
Okay.
I do not believe so.
Okay,
Anna, do you have something? Because I skipped public and board comment too, if anybody had anything.
No, I was gonna make a motion to adjourn.
All right, make that motion
I'll
to
s-
adjourn at
I'll
9:09.
second the motion that she just made.
All right, quick roll
Yeah.
call. Chris?
Aye.
Anna?
I
And it's an aye from myself. We will see everybody in a few weeks. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Have fun.
thank you.
Good night.
Bye.
Nice speaking with you.